are back live. Fourth time in a row,
We are.
Stephen. Look at
Yes.
us. It's
Uh,
it's more than a streak now. Now it's I don't know, what's it, quadruple thing? Yeah,
yeah, I
well.
don't know.
Anyway, good
Once
to
in
be
a
back
lifetime.
online.
Once in a lifetime.
Exactly. Yeah, it might be the only time we ever make it four in a row. How are you doing, Stephen?
I'm good. Today, after a long time, I tried to make pizza dough again on my own. Um, it was okay. It was okay. It was I
You sound
tried. I tried.
disappointed.
Well, I mean, I was very excited because it takes like awful lot of time. I mean, awful lot of time. 24 hours you have to. I prepared it yesterday. And then if you don't know how to knit the dough and do the stuff so it's nice and fluffy and very thin, then you have a bunch of dough. If you put it in the oven, it's just a warm bunch of dough. But I guess I have to make it more often. That's just the thing, if you do this. It's with bread. It's the same. My first breads when I did them, they were horrible and they were flat and well, they were for the ducks at the pond, but not for me. So yeah, the same.
So you,
But
you're back to practicing your COVID skills,
exactly,
the sourdough baking. My wife used to
yeah, I
make
never.
pizza dough quite a bit for a while, and she was just using sourdough, and she didn't need to knit it a lot, as far as I can tell. She just left it
Really,
to do its thing. But I might be wrong.
I like that.
Might be misremembering.
That
Yeah.
that would be perfect because that's the most difficult part. That reminds me of this. How do you call it? These tents. If you go camping, there are these tents which you just throw those pop-up tents, and they just magically assemble
Mm.
themselves. If there's something like that with sourdough, I'm more than in. How are you?
I'm I'm
Oh, you
just
also tried
responding to my wife. Sorry, I just got a text.
getting the recipe. That's lovely.
No, no, no.
No, but I didn't try sourdough. I just
Yeah.
took normal. I mean, you can buy a pizza flour. I'm not sure.
Mm,
It's not white flour. It's just some mixture.
no.
It's not full grain. It's somewhere in the middle, I guess,
I
because it doesn't taste like
believe, like,
toast. So
yeah, no, I think she was buying specific flour, which is like the Italian kind. But yeah, no, well, I'm doing good. I had that stream last Monday with the .NET folks on .NET team, and that was fun. I was showing off my side project, I'm cheating on you, Stephen. I'm doing something on the side here. I'm doing
uh,
the HTMX thing. So yeah, it's been fun dipping my toes back to something completely greenfield, a new open source
that's cool.
that doesn't have all the cruft, and I'm trying to be very careful about the API and how it should look and how it should behave, because and probably, if that ever ends up being something that lives as long as bUnit does, I'm probably going to be regretting some API design decisions in 4 years, like we are now. But it's
Ooh.
fun. It's fun. So yeah.
I guess you have to. Yeah, you have to make more major versions. I mean, I do understand.
Absolutely.
I do understand the appeal of having V1 as long as possible because it's super easy for folks to stay with a version. And if you constantly
Mm.
have breaking API changes, I do
Yeah.
understand it's a turn off.
Yeah.
Some of the major JavaScript frameworks do that, and I don't like it.
No, I think I like our approach, but I also prefer to it's always fun creating new APIs. So yeah, trying it out, understanding, also trying to understand HTMX better.
Do you
Anyway,
like? Yeah,
yeah,
did
go
you
ahead.
did you come to HTMX by just toying around, or was there for you a specific thing in mind which you wanted to build?
So there's this fellow Khalid from JetBrains, one of their what's the word here again? DevRel guys, who's been very much into to HTMX and been doing a lot. And he has a few open source libraries as well related to that in the .NET ecosystem. And he was tweeting about this, I believe, last fall or something. or I can't remember. Somebody mentioned HTMX in relation to Blazor, and I didn't really see the point because it sounded a lot like it was the same thing as, what Blazor static server-side rendered pages were or components were giving us. So I was a bit dismissive, but then the HTMX brand word came on my radar, and I started noticing lots of people talking about it, and then I got curious, and one of them was Khalid. I started watching a bit about it, and I can sort of see the potential, and I can see where it could be a really good idea. And I just finished a project last month where it would have been a real good candidate actually for building with that instead of doing Blazor Server, which we ended up doing. Blazor Server is excellent, but then there's things that are add complexity to the solution, like state, right? Like in Blazor, both any Blazor application which isn't the Blazor static websites or static web apps, it's a stateful application, and state is sometimes unnecessary complexity, right? You can see with all the different state management frameworks we have for both for Blazor, but also for in the JavaScript ecosystem. And so it's sort of like if you don't need something super interactive, like right now for another customer, I'm building a dashboard where we have live IoT data coming in, and we want the dashboard to update all the things all the time, right? That's not really an HTMX candidate kind of an app. You could definitely do it, but then you wouldn't get the same
better off.
So that works better for modern. That's a loaded term.
And modern, let's say more client-oriented, interactivity-oriented frameworks.
But it's stateful, right? That's really the key here, is that you can go and say, this particular field, I want to tick this from 1 to 2, right? I want to have that thing be, update that only that thing, and I want to have multiple things pushing data in from multiple angles, and it's very live, very streaming data kind of oriented. Then we're using Blazor Server for that, and that's excellent for that scenario, because it's like an internal dashboard kind of a thing. So not millions of clients, just tens of clients or so. And that Blazor Server really works well. Really works well. But for the previous customer, which was more like a data entry kind of a thing, showing some graphs, working with data, moving back and forth between pages, stuff like that, there, a more stateless approach would have made the solution quite a bit more simple. So
one question. So one of the major shortcomings I found with Blazor Server, especially on let's say if you have a mobile device, is imagine you are browsing a web page which is made with Blazor Server, and you click a button, and it can happen that your internet isn't that stable. So when you click that button, well, it is somewhat buffered on your device, but it can happen that you don't get any UX signal that, okay, I click that button, and somewhere the server gets it. So you click that button again and again, and at one point you just get internet again. And so what happens is basically you're doing 3 clicks at once. And this is, I don't know, can you come around with HTMX here? Probably not, because you still need a server handling that. So you cannot just click on the button, disable that button, and that doesn't work.
So HTMX is just a way to, what's the word I'm looking for here? Enhance the capabilities of the web browser. But at the end of the day, you have a server that generates markup, and you have a browser that renders that. But now you have additional attributes on your HTML that gives you more abilities. If I know it's not bUnit, but I actually have some demo I can show you, just to give you an example of just I guess very small demo. I'm not gonna pull out the big one. You can go back and watch the stream from last Monday, if you want sort of a more explicit things. And things have changed quite a bit just in the last weeks in terms of how things are working. But I do have sort of a minimal example app I can show. So let me just see, where are we? We are here. So I wonder if this actually works now. This thing, it's like very much live code. Let me share my screen. Let's go here. So this is a minimal HTMX app, and you have just your regular old, and then more interesting is to look at this guy down here. So if we refresh, you will see, well, if you ignore this, this is the browser link thing from Microsoft. So here we're just getting a good old-fashioned 200 HTTP call back to the server, and it's all server-side rendered. And you can see we get the, some markup down here. Now, if I navigate to another page, you will see that this actually does, and I don't know if it's visible enough, but it does an XHR request and an AJAX request in the background. And it does that because we have, let me get my zoom it on here, because we have this attributes added on the body. That basically, tells HTMX to more or less behave like enhanced navigation does in Blazor, both with forms and other things. So because I clicked on this this counter link here, you will see that it's just a good old-fashioned link, nothing special about that. Literally just a href with a link. But because we have HX boost on the header, that means that the HTMX will intercept that and say, well, I'm gonna actually, instead of doing a full post back that updates the whole thing, I'm just gonna basically enhance navigation. Now, so here let me flip this over to this side. Here we have the counter component, right? The counter component doesn't work in static Blazor web applications, right? It's not even in the template. If you do .NET new Blazor, no interactivity, you don't get a counter component. Here you do. And how does it work? So, well, we just loaded the thing, but if I click here, I get count 1. And if I look at the markup that was returned, you can see it just returned the bit that actually changed, essentially the current count. And the reason why it returned the button, let me scroll over here, is because we now have the current count embedded in a special, an HTMX value here, because we don't have any state on the server. So we have to keep the state somewhere. So now the markup is your state, right? So you keep the state in the markup. So this could also be implemented with a hidden field, right? A hidden form field. And then if you had your button inside a form, then that would be the thing, right? So just because we have some, we have some attributes here, we declaratively enable our button to be able to do more things than a standard button can out of the box, right? Another example would be the weather forecast app. So you have the same loading animation here, and then it shows up a little bit. Oh, I see I messed up a few things here, but bear with me. So initially, when you go to the weather page, let me just, I'll fix this very quickly. 1 second. Yeah, just need to move that over here. I'm just experimenting with the API and the syntax and everything. So, wow.
That looks, I don't know.
Yeah, no, okay. I think it's because
it was also for you like that.
Yeah. So it loads and now it does its thing. So you go to the page initially and it just does a full load, right? But you have, but then if you want to see, it has load and then it's loading data and then it delivers. So, and the first request is just the full page, and then there is a load request coming after. So basically you go to the server and it says, oh, here's some loading, but go back and get the data that takes a while to download. Now, if we go and have a look here, you will see this. So this is just very much experimental. Let me zoom in a bit. So we have this, again, also experimental because I'm changing things every hour or so right now. But we have this conditional component base type so that you can inherit from. And that basically means that if you're doing a regular old, just full, I'm going to click up here, full request, it will render out all the markup in the component. But if there is a secondary request which gets kicked off by the HTMX lazy component, which is basically doing, so the explanation why the laziness works is because the first request returned, and unfortunately, let me just see if we can zoom in so slightly more. Can I hide? I don't care about the timeline. Can I just shoot? don't show you that. Maybe.
I guess on the grok at the most right, you can just disable it. Not the most right icon there somewhere. Can you? If you well.
Most right
Nah,
icon.
maybe not.
Oh, anyway, yeah. So, let's do this again. So you can see, unfortunately, it's not very well formatted, but down here we have a table, and that's basically our loading table. And you'll see it includes
Yep.
an ID, it includes an hxget, which says go to that page again, the weather page we just went to, go to there. Your trigger for doing that is the load. So we can basically send some markup down to the client, and an HTMX will see, oh, I'm supposed to trigger on load, which means as soon as the markup is added to the page. So that is my trigger for doing a request to the get. And my target for the response I get back should be the weather data, and I should swap that into the inner HTML. I should replace myself, the inner HTML here, with what I have. And the target was this. So what happened is that we made a call to the backend with these properties, and what is returned is the table here. And that is added inside this table. Actually, I shouldn't be returning the full table. I see that. So if you go in here to weather data, you can see we actually have a table class here. That's not really needed because we already have a table around it. So let's, if we go back here again.
Let me guess, you hooked in partially to the renderer for that? Basically, because in the renderer, you know whether or not there's ongoing render cycles happening?
No. Because it's what's happening is you're doing so you can see. Wait, did I not save my weather data?
I guess.
Oh,
where's the? Wait, can you go back? There's no table anymore. Where's the table in your HTML?
So,
I didn't see it.
But here, no, that's
no, I mean
purpose,
in your...
because we changed this. So this is just the head and body. Like so.
Where's the...
So because our
where's
HTML,
element table? Okay.
It's an experimental component I'm trying out. So no, yes and no. So the way we're doing this is I have done something during rendering where, well, there's this component of this interface that you can implement. And if a component implements, or rather inherits from this interface, we will ask, HTMX will ask the HTMXer rather will ask the component when it walks down the component tree to produce the markup. It will see, I've arrived at a component. Should this component output anything, right? And then it'll basically call this method on the component and say, hey, should I output something? And the component will get some input about the where it is in the component tree. Like, do you have stop. And basically it can look at the HTMX context, which has all the properties we saw that we're sending to the server, and it can decide whether or not to render itself. So what it means rendering itself, it means should I output any markup? But if that component has any child components, then that child component gets to choose for itself, or it can inherit the decision from its parent if the child component isn't a I-conditional output component. So that way, that allows us to specify here in the minimal example, where was that this conditional component base, it actually defaults to say, well, if my request, so should I output if I'm doing a full page request? So basically you're hitting F5 in the browser, then it should output its markup. Or if it has any, or if it doesn't have any direct conditional children. And conditional children is basically other components that implement this method. So that is sort of a base functionality. So it basically tells us, well, we add this here to our entry point, our weather components page, and the first time it just gets a normal request, it will render out, weather and this p tag. The second time we get a request, it will say, well, this is not a full page request. It's rather it's second time it gets not a second time, but when it gets if we refresh again, when it gets this first time, that's a full page request. That's like the let's see, come on, I can't drag that apparently. That's a document request. Then we get the second request, which is the HTMX request. And here, well, it responds back with no, don't output any markup that I have inside me. But when then HTMX lazy gets invoked and that gets asked, do you want to output anything? And if we go and look at HTMX lazy, and that's defined here, you can see that also implements that. And it has basically a condition saying, well, I want to output if it's a full page request, but I also only want to output, or I want to output if my target, so we have this HTMX, the target that is set when the HTMX request is doing a request, and the trigger is ID. So yeah, and then there's other things we do here in the build render tree where we decide which part do we output the loading HTML, or do we output the full child content. So bunch of different things going on to basically make Blazor and HTMX work seamlessly together, right? To have that so it feels native, so it feels like you're in Blazor mode, but you're also able to use all the HTMX attributes in your markup to basically get additional functionality. So you go from having just the basic Blazor static server-side rendered functionality to being much closer to the functionality you have with Blazor server. That's at least the goal, right? So I definitely think there's some possibilities here, but we'll see. Yeah, so we'll see. I've it's for me it's a good sign to some extent that there's been a lot of, like, if you just go to Nougat and search for HTMX, you will see a bunch of, you will see, I think, 22 or 23 other libraries that try to somehow enable ASP.NET Core, MVC, web Razor pages, or Blazor to work with HTMX. And so it's not like when I started bUnit where there weren't anybody else doing anything related to testing. So at least other people like me have had the same idea. But yeah, this is the idea is to, my inspiration was, well, I know a lot about how the render works internally through our work with bUnit. So I thought, well, I can see some things that where the integration can be much deeper than what previous attempts out on the interwebs have done. So no, Lee, I'm not reinventing web forms, but there's certainly some overlap, similar to what there is overlap with web forms and Blazor. But yeah, if you go to htmx.org and have a look and just read about how that works, and what is nice about HTMX is that it doesn't care about what your backend is. So it's just basically about enhancing the capabilities of the browser. And if your backend then is able to work well with that, understand, like if your backend understands HTMX, then you can have a really nice experience, and you can get sort of the advantage of being stateless, but also have quite an interactive UI. So, yeah. Anyway, do you want to?
Nice.
As you can tell, I'm heavily thinking about this these days. But I think we were here for bUnit, right? We were here for doing bUnit stuff.
We can make a session out of both. We can. Basically, that's a good segue because you're using Blazor. So there's our segue to bUnit.
Absolutely.
So how do we test your HTMX application right now?
So actually, we can't. Well, yes and no. So the
to some extent we can.
Yeah, what I've opted for when building HTMX is I'm spinning up. I have a few playwright tests because I want to make sure that what I'm doing when I'm generating custom things, that I'm doing the right thing, that HTMX can pick up on that. So I want to test the end-to-end. I need to sort of do integration testing with HTMX, and HTMX runs in the browser and it's JavaScript, so I have to do that. But for most of the tests, I just spin up my web server in an HTTP web server, ASP.NET Core web server, which hosts a test application with test components, and then I just do HTTP queries to them, because I want to test. Like what I'm doing is I'm plugging into the routing in ASP.NET So normally when you have a slash add an add page on a component, that well, instead of me drawing in the air, let me draw on screen instead. Let me pull that up again. So come on, yeah. So when you have a, I don't know, standard component like this, you have this add page. Out of the box, Blazor doesn't allow you to do any other things than get and post, and you don't get any control over the output variables. So you can't declare custom components or components that are directly addressable. So here I'm mostly doing this, but in theory you could also say, well, this weather data that should also be directly addressable, and then you can do something like attribute and then have HTMX route and say that would be, I don't know, guess weather data, for example, right? Something like that, right? So you'll be able to you can say, well, and actually methods, it should only work with let's say put, right? Well, or you should be able to delete the weather data. So you can do an HTTP delete, which is supported by HTMX, right? So you're able to sort of define additional declaratively again, because like other examples that are out there that integrate.
You said earlier that the page attribute is post. Is that always get, like always get?
No, it's
in an
either
SSR context.
No, it's all either get or post, because you can't do forms, right? You can't do HTTP forms, and that's so out of the box. The browser only supports get and post, right? The native browser functionality, but let's see, Khalid Blazor HTMX. Let me just find his. He had an article on this. So normally, if you don't really customize the hang on, stop moving about. If you don't customize the Blazor or Blazor's discovery, so if you want to integrate HTMX with anything, you have to basically, if you want to do something that is custom, like if you want to have, then you have to actually do something like this, where you do the minimal API kind of a thing, where you map a custom endpoint to count. Then you use the Razor component result to render the HTMX counter out and with some state and all of that. So you would have to manually declare all of these, and that's, if you compare that, so that's basically like, it is not a native experience. This you have here. So if we ignore all my text up here and just look at, well, here you have the counter, and you have an onput. So here I'm using hxput, and it will call this increment count method, which will then increment the count, and that will output this and return that back to. So that's much more native, right? You just declare, well, I want this page, and so I've hooked into a whole bunch of things I've done. I've hooked into the component discovery that happens when you start up your Blazor application, that finds all the components out there, and then I look for both the custom. Where did I put that? I might not have put that anywhere. The custom, on the weather. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I look for this attribute. So if you have a component that you explicitly want to just be routable during HTMX requests, then you can use this attribute. I also enhance the capabilities, or enhance the endpoint metadata, which is what they call it in the ASP.NET world, for the existing components. So the existing components becomes routable. As you saw, there is custom event handlers that match the hxput here. There's a custom renderer that actually understands some of these attributes. So when the thing that actually writes out them in bUnit, that would be the HTML analyzer, but here it's just called, under rendering, the HTML writer. So there's stuff in here where that understands HTMX attributes, understands. Well, doesn't make sense to scroll back and forth on this, but yeah, the idea is, so I've basically gone deep and hooked into various different parts of the whole rendering pipeline, the endpoint discovery, all of those things, to be able to support all the features of HTMX. and not
Interesting.
have to sort of hack it together like the standard approach has. But yeah, so that's something I was able to do because we've already gone deep on many of the rendering bits in bUnit or with bUnit in Blazor. What I didn't know a lot about was handling forms, ASP.NET handling forms, anti-forgery tokens. What was that? Component discovery. So I chatted with a bunch of folks at the MVP Summit. Javier from the Blazor team I talked to about how basically to do component discovery and having that working. I talked to Safia from the ASP.NET Core team about form handling, and I've had to resort to a bit of reflection about a bunch of places because there were quite large parts of the ASP.NET Core library that are internal that I needed to use that weren't available to me. But so I started out by just copy pasting all of that in and getting it working, and then I started throwing away lots of files that I didn't really need because I could just make it work with using a little bit of reflection to access the internal types. So it's been sort of a discovery going deep in undocumented
So I guess
code.
when I look through the code, I would see a lot of unsafe. How was it called? Unsafe accessor attribute. Would I see this here now and then?
I need to convert some of my classic reflection code to use the unsafe accessor attribute instead, so to get the speed back. That's one of the many things on the to-do list. A lot of it is also just me trying to experiment and see how these two technologies can marry well together. Like for instance, like there's one thing that you can in HTMX. If we let's see, HTML. I'm not sharing my screen. Let me share my screen again. So if you go to the docs here, there is a trigger filters. So what you can say is you can do something like this, say, hey, when this div is clicked, but the user also calls control down, right? So you can do you can override. So by default, if you just have something like this, the default event will trigger, which means that's usually click, or if it's a form, it would be submit. So there's different default triggers. But you can also go and say, well, if somebody double clicks on this div element, for example, right? So you can do all sorts of things. And then there's additional things that are super nice. For example, if you want to do what's it called, the virtualized component, right? So you can have, if for example, you have a list of, I don't know, 100 lines in a table, and then you can have sort of a dummy element at the bottom of your table. And when that gets revealed, that can fire off a request to the backend, say, give me the next 100, right? So it's not about, so it basically makes it a bit easier to do some like virtualization like that. When you just scroll down to something, you can have things happen. You can also have things when like these are special events that are built into it, but then it's also just, CSS selector things. You can also set it up to do pulling. So if you want to just have one element update every 2 seconds, you can do that. And they actually
good for dashboards.
Then you can have yeah, exactly. But yeah, but it's a bit in compared to like the thing that's neat about Blazor Server is that Blazor Server will send you very small diffs down, right? So it can patch up so that's going to be more data. If you have a very interactive dashboard with lots of updates coming down, Blazor Server is going to be more efficient because it's going to send just the small patches down, right? Which we've had a long, standing fun with exploring how all of that works. But here it's a bit more, depends on what. Yeah. So, but
that's fair. But yeah. My case would be if you have so much interactivity, is Blazor Server the right choice anyway?
Well, it depends on the scale. Like if you're building like the app that I'm building for work is a 10, maybe 5 people simultaneous users internal thing that needs to do thing. So then it's completely fine, right? And I've done some quite comprehensive dashboards like IoT data streaming stuff, updating, large tables with individual cells updating, whenever they wanted to individually. So, but this is more where you can say, well, okay, every 2 seconds call get news. But then if the server returns a 286 status code, that will also tell HTMX to stop, right? So you have a bunch of things that you can return back to the client, headers and other things that will
Is
basically
this a
cheat.
real HTTP code? I never heard of that. That's
No,
custom
I
just
don't.
for HTMX, huh?
It's 86
Yes.
terms, used to indicate an item is no longer available. I don't know. Yeah, so that's the thing with status codes. You can just use them, right? They are like
But yeah, of course.
and other things that you can do is you can say, well, when this button is clicked, it will by default look for a child element that has the HTMX indicator on it, and it will make that visible. So you can sort of do something where you have a loading indicator somewhere on the side, and as soon as the request finishes, the type becomes invisible again, or opacity back to 0. You can obviously also specify if you're using something different than HTMX indicator, or you have another element somewhere else on the page, right? Or you can do something like, well, they don't show that in this example. They have something like disable. So as soon as you hit the button, it will find that element that it should disable. So it can disable itself or another element, or at least itself. So there's a whole bunch of things. You can also control how it swaps in the data, if it deletes the data or swaps it in before or after the current element, or if you, for example, have that table example where you have a bunch of data and you want to load more data, you don't want to replace the existing data, you just want to swap it in. I guess maybe after end, I guess, yeah. Appends the content after the target or the target's page. So there's a bunch of things you can do. Then you can also do morphing where you use view transitions. So a bunch of things. So yeah, I think I've got on a tangent now. So yeah. So but I definitely think there's potential, because one of the things I've been struggling with is just like if you have something that is not really a super complex thing, but you easily get into like, well, I have this state over here and have this state here, and I kind of want to tell my like one thing here that I'm doing something over here, and you have to resort to some state management, and it can be very simple. It can be like a static or singleton, right, or a scope singleton to the connection. But then you might have some data that is shared across all your Blazor server connections, which is like singleton. Then you have something that is a scoped shared thing that is shared between components, and it quickly becomes complex, even like state management. So yeah, that's sort of where I see some inspiration, where this can be super useful, just for things that is a bit like a website plus a little bit of interactivity, nice additions. And I think your original question was, what if I go offline, like drive through a tunnel, and I'm sitting filling out a form in my HTMX app, the form will just work and it will stay there. All the state is in the form. And when I get back online and I hit submit, then the data will just go to the server, because there's no reset of state, because there's no state on the server to.
The problem is, like, how do you have to design your server then? Like, my scenario was, which falls short with Blazor server at the moment, is that you have a form, or let's say not a form, let's have some kind of interactivity. Let's say that counter example you have. It doesn't necessarily have to be a form. And imagine you go into a tunnel in the area where you have bad signal, and you just click once, and you would increment that counter, which obviously doesn't work because you have no interactivity or no signal to the server. No. So there is no signal R event going from your client to the server and back with a new HTML. So what you do naturally, because you have no UX experience of something is going, exactly, you do this. Yeah. And what happens then in Blazor servers, because those messages getting buffered, after you have signal, your counter increments not only once, but it depends how much of a maniac you were in the time in between. And it doesn't help if you do, hey, if I click that counter, disable that button, and only if I receive the answer, enable it, because disabling happens also on the server and enabling as well. So I'm not sure if HTMX can do anything here, but that's also not the main purpose.
I think so. HTMX will need to call the backend, and you will hit the button, and it will start the spinner if you've decided to use the indicator functionality, which makes sense. You can also even disable the button and it will just spin. And I guess the fetch the JavaScript fetch call will time out at some point, right? And then
Well,
there's
that's fine.
default, and then there's default. Like I don't think HTMX will do anything if it gets a timeout back. It'll just don't do anything. So there, the issue, the request will never arrive. So at least the 10 clicks will only still be 0. It will end up being 0 clicks, and the user will probably notice that I'm in the tunnel and nothing is working. And when they got out of the tunnel, they will hit the button again, and things will go back to working. So you won't have that accumulated buffered clicks. That probably won't.
Which
happen.
I would prefer, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's for
And
me
what-
one of the bigger shortcomings. in Blazor
I
server.
guess so. Blaze HTMX is also quite extensible, so you could include custom. You can include custom extensions to HTMX that will maybe hook into the browser APIs and see, oh, you went online, like the network connectivity went bad. So I think there's a browser API for that, and then you can add additional functionality. So that's another thing I like about it. It's quite extensible, so you can sort of hook into it and intercept calls. So you could, in theory, do something like if you're building a app that is supposed to work in sort of semi-offline random access mode, then you might have a plugin that basically captures, hey, I'm offline, so I'm going to pop up something when that happens to the user saying, hey, you went offline. You can continue filling out this form or whatever you're doing right now, but disable all the submit buttons, right? Or something like that. So it's very pluggable. It doesn't have any dependencies, doesn't require jQuery or some Bootstrap. Or it's just a very small independent library that you can plug into and you can hook up with other libraries. So yeah.
What's the bundle
But yeah,
size?
no,
Let me check.
it's 14K according to, let me see, HTMX. So
My
GZip.
usual my normally go-to website doesn't work. 14K. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like 45 or so uncompressed, and I think version. So there was one question last Monday on that stream that as well, will it work in any browser? And yeah, it's version 1 is IE 11 compatible, so it will work anywhere, right? That's not even like, it doesn't even depend on.
Is this really a
WebSockets
plus
or-
side? It's IE 11
Well,
compatible.
yeah. So
Oh, boy.
they are working on V2 of HTMX, which will drop support for
Drop support.
IE 11. Yeah.
And then I promise
But,
you that thing is not 14K, but like 4K because of the whole polyfill things they need for IE 11.
Oh, I think they're getting close to 10K compressed in version 2, but I'm not sure.
Thanks for joining us and have a nice day.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. See you around. By the way, Scott was the guy who did the. Well, I guess is it still a preview library we have?
Yes.
I think it's still a preview. The
I think so.
The
Web query.
Web.query library that have all the nice things for querying the DOM. I do think like it would be nice if somebody maybe other than Scott came in and also add a bunch of the other APIs we have. I think get by label right now, but
we have
that could be
find by
like
label,
get by-
exactly. So
find by label, yeah. We need a bunch more
there's
of
also
the
find by role and whatnot. So if you for
Yeah,
folks who
find
don't
by
know the
role-
testing library, the core ideas are here: display value, alt text, and whatnot.
Yeah.
So instead of relying on your DOM itself and how the markup is structured, you want to go semantic. So you don't care, if you say like I have a button which has a label, you don't necessarily care how the label was constructed. Is it really an HTML label element? Is it suspended? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And this is where this library jumps in and fills the gap. And it is awesome.
Yeah, that's really good work. So appreciate that, Scott, and fellow MVP as well. Anyway, I feel like I've been hogging a lot of the bandwidth here with HTMX. Do you want to? Should we do some bUnit work, or do we just want to keep? Let me just close this down.
Like, do you want to keep? I mean, we cannot even off topic. I would like to say like let's stay off topic, but it's not really off topic. It's still web development. So I'm just thinking, exactly. Maybe as always, let's go through the new stuff in the repo, which would be new issues. I do think we only have this one async task in. Yeah, exactly this one we checked last week. Unfortunately, there's no response, so either the person
Sean,
got this answer.
if you're
If you're
well, I
watching,
think
we are waiting.
The answer is
I'm
we
refreshing my browser
probably
every day, every night, and I cannot sleep. I'm just kidding. So if there are open points, just let us know. Besides, exactly, we had this. That's from me. And I tried it once, and it's painful, a lot of work to do. I still have somewhere feature branch. I'm not sure if I pushed it though.
No, I'm just thinking, is this
maybe you could label it as Steven, buy a better CPU. That would also resolve it.
I think it'll also be nice for all the others that are performance. I'm just gonna add a performance label. Stuff that will potentially improve performance. What color should we use for that?
Red. Performance always red.
Red.
Always.
Well, it's also we also have that already. It's bug. So
it's the same for me. Nah.
Bug performance. Let's see. Maybe.
Can you ask ChatGPT what is the color of speed? Let me do that.
It's white.
What?
It's white, man.
Yeah. Well. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
Okay, I'm just gonna pick one color. I don't care. Let's see. So let's label this as perf. Yeah. So just so we know whether or not.
ChatGPT says the color often associated with speed is red, and okay. And Google's Gemini is telling me either red, yellow, or silver. So
there you go. There you go first, folks. You heard it here first. Test validate duplicated.
There is God. I'm not sure if this is still valid on V2 anymore since we refactored exactly that code last week. Wasn't
this component and test shows where the duplicated component references. However, we should not have a position. This component and test shows a scenario.
Didn't we? There was something with where we had a stack overflow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a year ago. It's just a tricky one.
I'm going to I don't.
I would close it, especially because the render batch.update component is literally what we removed now.
Yeah.
Defeating the whole purpose of that ticket.
Yeah.
I think.
Exactly. Yeah. So for V2, it's not a problem, So let's see. This is probably a non-issue, but I'm going to say
we also probably need author's feedback, something like that. We also need as a label. I feel.
Yeah. I think there is one book that covers that. Question. Further information.
Okay. Yeah, that's also nice.
No, but that's sort of, I've been using that as input needed.
I don't think we have need author's feedback. Input needed when acquired. Yeah, that's fair. We have that. Okay.
Yeah. Documentation, duplicated, enhancement, GitHub action, good first issue. Yeah, let's just put that on there. So I've parked that for now. Do I have to refresh again? This one, I think we just want to say, hey.
Also
input needed, yeah, because I'm not going to do anything about it, honestly, unless he actually comes back and says. Then we have enable walking the component tree. I think
something
that might be
do.
something we can actually do now. Allow components without child content to be added to render tree. I do also think that maybe render tree should be renamed to root components because that's, I think, a term Microsoft also uses for some other things. Embed select docs content in code base. Yeah, that's more my aspiration of having it
I was
be
not
such
a
that
fan of that.
no, and I'm fine just pruning. Just excuse me.
Maybe
I've been
okay. No,
struggling with
you,
a bit
you
of
made it as completed. Maybe we should explicitly make it as how's it
oh
called? Like won't do, just for our future selves.
oh yeah. Dang it. Where did it go? Closed.
Okay,
Sort
well, how is that
by
sorted?
recently updated. There we
Just if not,
go.
it's 1080. You can just use the
Close as
link.
not
You could,
planned.
yeah, or
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, exactly. And test probably close that as not planned as well. Good point. Good
You
point,
have to
Stephen.
click. Oh, I
Yeah.
guess you have to
No,
explicitly click.
no, I think well, did I not do it right? Why is recently
Last recently
updated not?
updated. Yeah, exactly. You really have to press that button once more.
There we go. Okay,
Yay.
sure. Good. Okay. Async task input needed. Wrapper performance. Enable documentation. That's still a V2 thing. It also has the tag. Enable working componentry. Allow. Yeah. Remove unnecessary abstractions. I think we can.
We can
close that
close
now?
that now with
Yeah.
basically 2 weeks to go, and it's done. Like
Yeah, done. Yeah,
planned
I
and
think
done.
that's for now at least. Yeah. Well, we did a big stab at it. Maybe other things will show up. When
Yeah, fair.
interacting with the child components HTML, should it be treated in the what?
Yeah, there was something with forms, I think.
When interacting with a child components HTML, should it be treated in the whole rendered content? I've noticed something. When I have a form and a component containing a submit button, when I render the outer component, find the HTML button and click, the submit is fired. When I render the outer component, locate the inner component and fire the button, click. The click is only bubbled within its own rendered HTML of the subcomponent, hence no submit is ever triggered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that might be a thing we would want to fix for V2 because one thing, so the problem is that each individual rendered component has its own set of nodes, and it's the nodes that we are using to discover it's the nodes that sort of where we sort of do the bubbling inside. But if we just have a small fragment of a component, you only have the nodes for that fragment, but you don't have the history. So yeah, that takes me back to the to something I've been meaning to do, and that's, I think we talked about that just before stream. Like, instead of having each individual component having their own nodes list and each individual component having their own markup copy, like they all build their own small pieces of markup, there is just like the root component has the nodes list and has all the markup, the raw markup string. And then the individual subcomponents just know which parts of the big one from the root is theirs. But in this particular case, if this was the case where you went in and said, well, this particular small, subcomponent, I'm going to click a button there, but the bubble will still bubble all the way up the entire node stack. Right. So
The thing is that are we really okay? I'm not sure if we really want to do that. I do see some appeal, to be honest. I do understand that, but it is kind of weird if you do the same situation, but you don't want to bubble up events. You just want to use cut.find or whatever, you use find. Are you also looking then
Mm.
into your parent component, even though you called find component and automatically go down the render tree? Then it doesn't make much sense. And I feel like that feels inconsistent. So I would give that whole thing a second thought if we do want to have this by design as the time
Mm.
being, because I feel like other APIs would feel inconsistent if we start doing this just for events.
Which APIs would that be?
Yeah,
I'm
the
trying
API of
to.
not API, sorry, the behavior that we say, okay, if you say like here you have an outer component with an inner submit form, and you do cut dot find component inner submit form, and they're called a button, then it doesn't bubble up. And now what he wants is basically, hey, it should bubble up, it should submit that form, which I do understand. The explanation of, the problem is that what we have right now, your component has just its markup and obviously also all of its descendant. My
Yeah.
problem with that is if you do the same thing, but instead of click on a submit button, you say, hey, find something.
Mm.
For example, in this regard, you would say in the inner submit form, which doesn't have a form HTML tag, in yours, you call find find form. Would you expect to get an element back or not? And for me, that is super confusing, maybe.
Mm. Well, I don't. So sorry. I think this angle sharp renderer. I think we concluded that we're not going to do this particular thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to close this issue as not
Yeah.
planned, because we tried very hard a few summers ago, and it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't to be. Now, the thing is, I think doing this would make it consistent with other APIs. So because when you go and say get a child component, some specific lower component, that component still exists in the render tree, and if it has any cascading values or it does something that triggers something on a parent component, that still bubbles up. So the only thing that is, so actually I do think this is the thing that is inconsistent, right? You're going down and you're finding a specific subcomponent, and then you're doing a dot, click,
I would
and
differ.
then the click, okay.
I would differ in the sense of it depends what your starting point is. If you do something, well, that's maybe very technical, but if you do something like find component or find, then you basically create a new boundary where the thing you found is the root and there's nothing above it. But it behaves the same way. So if we have a parent, so if I do render component parent, and then I say, hey, which is my CUT, and then I say CUT find component child, and in that child I say find, which is only something which is in my parent, I get nothing back. It's just, and I mean, I get an exception. If I say find all, I get an empty collection. So it's very consistent right now. So the question would be then, would you make it consistent everywhere?
But we don't like find like so we don't like this bubbling up the tree. So your example is that I found a child component and I'm looking at the markup for it. And yes, that markup should own.
This is his case.
Yeah. But so there is. So my sense is that you have like the raw markup string would only contain from that component and down. But the DOM nodes, it's like you go into the browser and say, query select all or query selector, and you find a specific child element. That child element does have it does have a parent node, I believe it's called, which allows you to go up the tree again. And when you go up to that level, if you say give me the raw markup for this level, you get that plus all the down. So in that sense, I think it's consistent in that sense. I think that. But we don't have like literally when you go down and say find component, you get that, and then it looks as if you just look at the nodes list, it looks as if you are at the root, as you say. But that is inconsistent from the component tree, where you're clearly not at the lower level. And actually, this leads into that whole other thing about walking the component tree, where now you will be able to go up the component tree again.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm fine with that function. My
Mm.
pledge is that we should align it with all the APIs we have.
Oh yeah,
So
but I think
if
that
I do
only
find component, or if I say, hey, um, wait for helpers should
yeah
exactly also work in that behavior. So even if in my HTML there is nothing, because I was part of a bigger render tree, if I do wait for element and that element is my
yeah.
parent, in theory it should work, because otherwise it's
S-
inconsistent.
and I disagree because find or wait for is always from this element and down, right? So wait for element. If you have
Yeah.
said find a child, so you're going down to the tree and you're saying from this level and down, I want to, wait for things, or I want to search for things, or I want to, wait for elements to show up, or I want to mark up to change in a specific way. So you're always searching down, but then you have the ability to walk up. Both components tree wise and node tree wise, and if you choose to do wait for element at a specific level, it's from there on and down. So I think consistency wise, I think I see what you mean, that wait for is searching downwards.
But wait, to give a counter perspective with wait for, I do understand what you mean, but there are like CSS selectors like has, which basically would beg to differ, where you basically always go from the parent and check, does someone has something in its children. So no, it's
Yeah.
not always my level and down. It's depending what you do. So if you, for example, has
Yes.
selector, so
Yeah.
it so there's there for me there's a tricky part. How do you slice that so it's consistent with how, yeah, probably one would do it in a web browser if you just use JavaScript to find something.
Well, so okay. So let me rephrase, I guess. Um, well, if you are using, if you're like saying you're finding a child component and you want to say, I'm going to wait for something in my parent. Like if you were able to do a CSS selector that actually searches the parent, and I'm not sure if you can, but are you saying that you can, if you have, like, if you are here, like if we do inspect and you find this element, can I then go and do, well, clear the browser? Can I then do, is it $0? Is that the, yeah, that's the element here. Can I do query, query selector all? Is there a selector that sort of gives me,
That's a good question.
is there a
I thought with
has?
has you can do that. Basically, you're asking now, but you have to select in the has clause obviously what you want, like an ID or HTML element. So has div, for example. Now we need something which is unique. So only if you walk upwards you find this
Sure.
element, but not downwards.
No, but I guess my point is more that if we do this and you found that, then the query selector something has, if we can walk, if we can look up the parent tree, that wouldn't work now. It doesn't work in V1
Yes,
because we don't.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but again, I think that's in the same vein as the other issue we were looking at. I think that
That's
might be
fine.
expected because you can go up as well. So
Yeah,
and that
basically
would be
because we
like
only have one markup for everything, and your component is just a slice of that markup.
yeah. So that would definitely require some work to be able to do the like big, because then you need to have a single DOM element, and I have a fairly good idea of how to do it, but it would certainly require some testing. But basically, it would be just to have the root component, run HTML analyzer, and whenever it comes past, if you go have a look at the bUnit code here, HTML, HTML, lice. Why can't I? Oh, I actually had it. It's just lice. There we go. So let's collapse this down. So we have render core, but basically, the structure is, where do we get going? We get going here, get HTML, and we start. Actually, there's a slightly different structure in the later versions of the of this basically thing. So maybe we want to adopt that. But basically, there is when we start out by rendering a component ID, which will always then be component ID 0, the root component, unless we are rendering multiple root components. But whenever you start rendering a component, you would, let me see, believe down here, there is another append, that's escaping stuff. There is render children, nope. There is, well, render child component. Whenever you go into here, whenever you come into the, dang it. Whenever you come in here, you would basically note, down the current markup string length, and then you call render frames, which is render children, and then you say note down the. So basically, this is the start of component markup. This is the end of component markup. So that would be the. So here we are starting a new render for a new child. So basically we get the frame here. This would be, this frame would have the component ID. So we are basically able to write into each, we can go into each, we can actually go into the bUnit component state and say, your markup starts at index something in the string that is being generated.
Yeah.
Right? And then you can also go in and say, when you're done rendering, then your markup ends here, right? So you can basically give it a span.
It's just that span,
a slice, right? Not well, yeah, but it's a slice of the string that you say.
Not a technical span, not system.
Yeah. But your span, your slice of markup is this bit here, right? So when and let me just see what version of I'm on V2. Yeah. So that's sort of a way to detect where the component starts and ends. And then we have, because we're using AngleSharp to generate the DOM, we also have that source. I think we have, when you go into an element, you can see where its source starts and ends, like there's indicators of, I think there's information in the output of parsing the full DOM node from AngleSharp. I think that saves which element, where is that in the original text string. So basically, so you can use that to also slice up the full DOM node list and say, well, these DOM nodes belong to this component and so on and so forth. So that's sort of the fundamental thing I think we need to be doing. But there's interesting things. I kind of want to update this a bit because there's something that's changed, like the static HTML renderer that is built into .NET has changed a bit. Let me see, source, static HTML renderer. There we go. And you can see here it has more of the structure I was looking for.
Almost.
Please. Zoom, collapse even more. So it has write component, which is the entry point, and then you have so if you look at this method is getting called. You have write component HTML, and that is actually getting called here. So whenever somebody calls render child component, it'll call back to this entry component, and here you can then this is where you would capture the start and end. So that would be done in here, both for the start component and for any subsequent components. But there's like slightly different structure. There's a new stuff. There's something called a render event now, which is a new type of event that we don't really have in our renderer. So there's some new things that are being that have shown up in the in since, but I don't not necessarily something, but something they use. That's something they use for
Enhanced form
static web
navigation.
apps. Yeah.
What?
Well, not enhanced. Just it's basically a named event. Right now, the only thing that gets outputted as a named event is the submit
That
events,
form
right?
name.
Yeah. So because the problem is, and that's something I've solved in a different way for HTMXer. But the thing is, when you don't have any state on the server, and you have an unvalid submit or unsubmit on your form, right? When you when that goes down to the client, and then you get a HTTP post back with a form in it, but you have that you want to have that callback, your on submit code, that method should actually get called, right? And if you have multiple forms on the same page, you want to call the right form handler, right? So that's where you have
Ideally,
those
yes.
names. Yeah. So that's why you have to use the form name on your forms in .NET 8 static server page, because otherwise it doesn't know which form you're submitting. and by extension, it doesn't know which event handler it should call. So obviously, if you want to support more than just the submit event, you have to do additional things, which I've done for HTMXer, but that's a different story. Anyway, you can see they changed things quite a bit. There's things here where you it'll automatically output a hidden form field, a form name for submitted events. So they're doing additional stuff. But then there's also something about creating scopes, and they're actually walking up and down this DOM tree. So yeah, there's stuff going on. There's also additional things, but I think VMon is up to date. Yeah.
That looks new, but
yeah.
then again,
Again,
that's the current.
That is again, because
Submit events.
if you just if you're on a page, right, and you just add a edit form, right, and on a static server side page, right, you just add an edit form. You don't specify the action URL that it should call, right? So this is basically specifying the action URL for you based on your current URI, right? The current request URL. So there's a bunch of things that they've had to do, which I've discovered now that I've done HTMXer, that you have to do to make it work, because it's stateless, right? So you have to again store the state in the browser. Now, so yeah, so I guess going back to the point, I think that's how we can track things, how we can. Where did my issues list go? Here we go. So that's how we can sort of keep track of, and maybe just have one source of truth, which is at the root component for like when you do call test context.render, then you basically get a new root component, and that is sort of that holds the source of truth. So,
and if you want to get your markup, you just get those markers and slice out what you need.
Yeah. So should we just
Equally with the
try to
nodes.
prototype it? Yeah. Should we just try to prototype this, or like, do you think does it make sense to give it a go?
We can give it a go. I mean, you have it already open at the right spot. I'm just wondering. Yeah, no. Okay.
Yeah. I just wanted to just a bUnit version of that.
We kept that open because exactly. We have now one cool feature, and there are others.
Yeah. There are more. Yeah. Okay, let's see. So document testing components to use native dependencies. I'm going to just not.
I forgot totally what this was.
It's DLL import. Nobody's has asked us about this, so I'm just going to say not planned. It's it's documentation. You know what? Let's keep it around and just say, hey, it's might be a good first issue. If somebody wants to, up for grabs kind of thing, I'm disinclined to delete it just because, but it might be useful.
I'm thinking the V2. Do we need two things? We have the V2 issue and we have the V2 milestone. I do think one of them is obsolete for sure.
Yeah. Close with comment. Yeah. Make event dispatchers also have side effects on element they are triggered on. I don't believe this is ever going to happen because we've dropped the whole, stateful document object model with the bUnit renderer. So closed as
Also not sure, given our resource and time budget, if this is not worth doing. I guess it is worth pursuing, but yeah, we all don't have like infinite amount of time.
number 50, was it 51? This one, which was attempted but not completed. Yeah. Okay. Yes, this one we would.
That's now a follow-up.
No, yeah. So
what we're doing right now.
Get exactly, because that will enable that, right? So yeah. So this can be solved by that. Docs, fine. I'm gonna ignore those. Allow like match with any type.
I tried that once. I can fondly remember that, and then no one again came. So I think it's okay. I would not close it, but it's nothing we need.
It's a low priority.
I mean, it also goes in a contrary direction to we have here this create mocking abstraction. It goes a bit contrary to this ticket, so it's a bit of an either or, because it doesn't make sense to pursue both at the same time.
I want to say I want to have all that are not documented. How can I belt plus?
Can you use all plus click return? What the heck?
Yes.
Can you
so
just...
that no, yeah. So now I don't have the documentation, the stuff in here, because changing a dynamic component type should not null out the referenced capture ID.
Can we easily do that without the angle sharp renderer? Because right now we are creating new refs. There's a part in the HTMLizer which does that.
Yeah, not? So I think I think the problem is that when we get a new, it doesn't keep it, like the element reference doesn't keep it around for later render cycles, right? So I think the problem is the first time you render something out, it will have the
correct
reference. But the second time you do a render, then the element reference will be nulled out. And I think, so I think it's less of an issue in that. So the user probably shouldn't be testing the element reference anyway, because it's like an implementation detail, right? It's a library specific thing, right? So, but yeah, we might be able to save it when we do an update to the existing nodes. We might be able to see, well, okay, there was this element reference, but then again, you have to make sure you put it on the right spot again, and probably we'll see. It's like, let's see. If it's solvable. I don't think it is.
Can leave it open though.
Yeah. I'm not closing it. So let me just see when interacting with the child. That's what we talked about. Yeah, I think it's not setting event type by default. Oh, this is an old one. Okay, well,
can't remember much.
No, me neither. I'm completely blank now. So yeah, let's try to tackle. So the DOM thing, right? So I
Mhm.
think what we want to do is we want to go into the bUnit component state. Where did you go? bUnit component state.
Yeah, you mean rendered component?
No. Oh yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
We don't call it like
That's
that.
what I meant.
No.
That's what I meant exactly. So
Maybe it makes more sense to call it like that now, as it is basically that.
no, yeah,
Wait. No, it's not true. It's not a bUnit component state. Well, component state is just such an abstract word that.
yeah,
Nah,
it's
no,
for us.
let's
It's
keep it that
more than
way.
that. Yeah.
For
No, that's.
especially for the books,
I,
YouTube tutorials which are out there.
well, we still have the I rendered component, so that's
Yeah, but
not
that's
going anywhere.
even weirder if we should have. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I would, yeah, if we rename that, I would probably also rename the interface because that's a one-to-one thing.
I think the name is fine because it is more than just the state. It also has markup, which the original
Which is
component
state.
doesn't have. Yeah, which is no, it's
a snapshot of the well.
Yeah. So exactly. So it's no. I say we
That's the
keep name.
problem.
I think
State
it's
is
fine.
such an arbitrary abstract word. You can't just literally understand what you want.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, so well,
You
okay.
need
First
two
things
integers.
first. I need two integers. I need private int markup start index. Yeah.
Oh, GitHub Copilot. Let's go. Oh wait. I know it's not out. Like we should probably use how's it called? GitHub Code, like the this new feature they announced, where you basically spin up the whole workspace and then you give it an instruction and it does all the things for you.
Okay, I haven't heard about that, but it sounds like so I guess
like yeah.
So we have these methods, but I do want to actually, that's something I've started doing. I've started moving dispose methods up next to
It's interesting. I would have put them not only that, I'm just interested because normally we put all the public things on top.
Yes, so we don't have any private things here in this method. So we have a bunch of fields, then we have properties, and then we have and then we have constructor,
properties,
and then we have yeah.
Well,
and
the only thing now it's personal preference.
These
they should be on top.
These should be
because
on top. Yeah,
kind of props. I know they're events, but they're
yeah. So they
my only concern why I normally don't like to put dispose on top, and also in tests, if your test has to inherit from iDisposable, is that disposing stuff is probably not your main concern, and I like to see the main concern first. Disposing is absolutely not what interests me in majority of cases.
I've always, and I've used to do that quite a bit, where I would have my properties, and then constructor, and then public methods, and then protected methods, and then internal methods, and then static methods, or well, private methods. And then you would have dispose at the very end. But for me, let me hang on. Why did my do not disturb is on? Oh, let's see. Let me move my screen share ever so slightly. I don't want my boss to go to come online. That would I don't want to. So let's move things around ever so slightly. There we go. And you can now go over to the right instead. So, and let's hide that. And where did I go?
So
But
yeah,
for me,
dispose.
like
Back
we
to go.
have constructor, and then we have the cleanup. That's like life cycle methods, and they are usually public, right? So that's why I keep them together, because that's always sort of been a thing where, yeah, we kind of want to put dispose at the bottom, but then it comes after all the private
Because
and
it's the end
internal
of the
and
life cycle.
protected. So these sort of, so the locality of behavior is sort of that this is the thing that creates, this is the thing that destroys. So that's sort of my reasoning for changing the order.
Crazy. I would even because of that explanation, I would put it at the end. Because it's the end of the life cycle. So if you have something like init, would you put init after this post now?
No, I would have a so this is just a standard type, right? So I would have constructor and then dispose, and then so like it doesn't make sense to have it after update markup or ensure.
No. Absolutely. I would still have
Yeah.
it. I'm also more of put public stuff and then private or protected stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just, for me,
So
disposing is an
public
implementation
void
detail I'm not so much
set
interested in, but keep that way.
indices in is that right?
Yeah, indices.
Indices.
The only thing is because just know it from German, and it's just take the German words, replace the Z with a C, and you're in 80% good to go. So yeah, sounds good. Are you googling it?
Oh, no, sorry, I'm just responding to my colleague here streaming.
Markup starting there. Yeah.
All right. So now we have that. So we can start by going into our HTML analyzer and basically is Blazor get HTML. So let's start by introducing a private static void.
I'm not sure what you want to do now.
I want to note where child components start and end. And we call render core, we call render frames. So this, where are we calling this from? We're calling this from gate HTML. My render frames method might be, this is a region. Yeah, so that's a different thing, render child component. So
yeah,
I probably want to have, I'm just trying to see how, so if we
we need, yeah. Don't we only need like two things? We have to get the component state out of the array and get the current position.
Yes. Oh, I'm just trying because I like the way it was structured in the other one. So let me just open that up because that makes sense in terms of having those, because I basically do a similar thing in HTMX. Yeah, go away. That was down towards the bottom, I believe. Render. Right child component. So render children, render child component. Yeah, so render child component, that's here. Okay, yeah. So something along those lines. Let's jump over here and say this has the, well, it's a text output, but similar feel to it. Yeah, so this would be extracted into a, let me just delete that and instead do and this would be an in
small comment. Once a single file gets that big, I sometimes split it into two or more files, class.prop.cs, class.lifecycle.cs. That's also
Yeah,
interesting. I never
well,
did this.
it's
Um,
so
I'm
actually, if you can see here, that's actually something Microsoft does as well. You can see here in the renderer, they have the event dispatching, HTML writing. Then I have my own HTMX, and then another rendering. So Microsoft does the same thing. The problem is, Leaf, that all of this is just all of this is literally just creating markup. So it's, yeah, you could split it up into, but it's
No, I
sort
guess
of
it was
belongs
for
to
the Reddit component. That you
yeah
have like
yeah.
Reddit component dot lifecycle where you put like the CTOR at the dispose, and then you have this
Oh
other
yeah.
stuff.
Well, that it looks bigger than it is, but it's really only
Yeah.
180.
But I
So
also
it's not a
like,
very big, and then we have lots of comments. So it's not very complex
yeah.
component. So all of
But I
this
do
belongs
like,
kind of together.
I also like that. I use that approach for log messages. So with the new partial log thingy and the source generator, I don't like to clutter all the stuff. So I normally have
Yeah.
some extra file partial class, which is just for the logging, because that's not my core business logic. I don't care. So, and I don't want to clutter at my main concerns.
So I think I will just rename this to render component. And here we want to see, we have, so instead of doing this here, and instead of doing that, well, okay, maybe not. But yeah, this is very much the same thing. So
yeah, exactly. That was about the discussion.
So
moving dispose higher up.
Yeah. One thing I did in here, instead of passing around, so originally this code from Microsoft's point of view would be passing around, instead of component state, it would be passing around this the component ID. And what I did was I changed it because I wanted to have access to the component state. So whenever we want to render a component out, we just go and get the component state by its component. That allows us to, do things. So
which in our case would be the Reddit component.
Yes. So that's exactly it. So here we have a get. So we start by, so in here we say, well, that would be var component state would be then
no
renderer.
Copilot tried it, but configure wait false, yes.
Oh wait, do we not have the? Oh, we have the renderer here. Yeah, we have the renderer. Oh yeah, so that's also the difference is as the HTML analyzer is basically this HTML analyzer here. That's actually just a partial in the HTMX in the renderer itself.
It is the renderer.
So yeah, it is the renderer. So that would be renderer.get component.
Get components. What?
Yeah, that doesn't exist. Right. What did I do here? Oh yeah, I did this. Let me just see if we can make that work.
But isn't get component? Oh no, it's internal. Was it internal?
Yeah, it's protected and other things. So
okay.
yeah, we would need to go in here and
make it expose it internally.
Yeah, that's basically one of these guys. So that would be
component state.
Rendered probably just I rendered component actually. And our friend here, I rendered component, would then implement
this method.
This method there. That would be, where did you go? Here we go. So we would have update state. That might also just end up being this, and update state would go away. So if we look over here, you would be able to see I rendered component and renderer. Oh, hang on.
Do you have to go to
started here? Yeah. Excuse me. Get component state, and there's two versions. There's the one that takes a component ID. Oh, hang on, I don't want to mess that one up. I want to mess this one up. Get
No,
component state.
no, you messed the right one up.
Well, we still need to keep one of them.
No, they're both broken. So you have get current render 3 frames, which returns an iRender component. I doubt. And the bottom one is your return type on 408 is wrong.
Oh, yeah. Okay, undo. So we have get component state, which returns
a component state, so we have to cast it.
Yes, or we can do components. You can also search by component, which actually has a different code path. It does a different thing.
Do we need both? Isn't that always the upper one we use?
No.
And you want to have base.component state, otherwise you make it recursive. Just that you know.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's what it's telling me. No, so this one actually goes into component state by component, get by value.
The internal
default.
Dictionary.
Yeah, but this one does something different. It calls get required component, which will do a thing and it will blow up. So
will the latter one also throw an exception if the component under question isn't in the tree?
I don't think so. Let's see. Get value default.
No, get value default. Interesting.
But so yeah. Well, I think it's either way. It can be useful to either use. I don't know. I don't know what is fastest. But yeah.
I wouldn't mind about that right now.
No.
I probably want to.
Anyway, we can do renderer.get component state, and we have our
component ID.
Oh, we have only a component ID in this particular case. Fair enough. So now we can do. Well, so I guess we save that, and then here we say component. So this is the root component state dot update states, and because we're just starting out, it would be 0. No, not update state.
Update set id set mark
set
index
so,
something.
And then it would be context dot results dot length, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, you can also use indexes. Wow.
Sorry?
You can also, instead of indeed says, you can also call it indexes. Just an es at the end on index. It seems like a valid plural form. Might be American English. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Just Googled my way.
Seems sloppy, so probably American English. I'm kidding, folks.
Yeah, unfortunately, your programming language is very American.
Yeah. That's also why actually I do program.
Do you think there's someone, just creating polyfills? So if you use, for example, a color animation, you use OU, couleur. That would be cool, huh? So you have British English.
Yeah, no, I was just about to say that's also why I don't program with Danish keyboard layout, even though printing on my keyboard is Danish. So I just I switched it over to English keyboard layout because semicolons and all of those are much more accessible. Now, here we have we say var start index, which would be context dot result dot current length. Then we do the whole rendering of things, and then we can go context.
Look at this.
Oh, you almost had it. Var end, yes, and then we go and do. We go context dot renderer. Oh, hang on. Okay, I guess. I rendered components. get component state. Get component state. What are you complaining about? Remove the private fields. Get component state.
Mhm.
Oh, it's unused. That's why it was
Ah.
complaining. Yeah. I was like, what? Get component state. And that would be, oh, we have our frame component ID. So that's there. And we can do set indices start end. Now, the problem is, as far as I can tell right now, is that we, when is this called? This is called in here, and it's called in the bUnit renderer. So during update display async. So we have all the update parents and all of that jazz. Now, why is this all of a sudden complaining? Cannot
It's not
convert
null
from
here.
update parents.
Is get component state? Does it give you? It gives you a nullable. Is that the case?
Why did you stop working? Okay, let me jump over in here and go.
Can you show again the error message? Cannot convert.
Yeah, I just want to see what I actually changed in here. So I just added. Oh, I have to discard this change. Here we go. That should probably solve it. Yeah. Or not. Get. Oh, it's because we overrode. Oh, I know. It's because we overrode. So we want to call base dot here. There we go. Now it's happy again. That's because we introduced our own. Let's actually rename these to get rendered components.
Then you can also remove the new. I guess that's what he's complaining about now.
Yes.
Yeah, it does not hide. Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't hide anything. So now this is get components
broken again.
No, yeah, back to the previous thing. Okay, let me just go in here and see. So discard that guy, discard that guy, and discard that one. So we just have the things we actually changed in here that we want. And let's do this and say HTMLizer. It is calling get rendered component and get rendered Oh, no, that's right.
On the context, you still didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't change it down.
And on the context, you also have to. Oh, yeah, I did. Okay.
So, all right, everything should be building now. So we have these changes in get render component. Now we do want to go in here into our bUnit renderer and change. So right now the update logic is that we receive updates to some components. Actually, also when we have disposed components, like we want to tell, when we dispose a component, we want to basically walk up to the root and say, hey,
an update.
One of your children has changed, right? So actually, apparently I have errors. Why do I have errors?
In tests end to end. Ooh. You didn't change anything there, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Let's see. Probably.
MS build again, once more. Locking you some files. Nah, don't think so.
Let me see. You could be. No, it doesn't look like it.
No, there's no warning.
.NET clean. .NET builds. Let me just see if it's Visual Studio that's drunk. So pause music.
Oh. Oh. Oh, the tension is high. The tension is...
I know what's going on.
Is it up?
Yeah. Why is the core compiler taking so long? Yeah, we have unused fields. I know. No. Okay, so I know what the problem is. The problem is I need to use the VS preview.
The preview? Why?
Because
Because of .NET 9.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I couldn't figure it out, I guess.
Could use Notepad. Then you don't have any squiggly lines. Did you consider that?
Then it wouldn't be an interesting stream, I think. Yeah, no squiggly lines, but lots of mistakes.
It depends how you define interesting, because until you hit .NET build, you do not know how many errors you have. It's very
exactly
mystique.
Okay, come on. Sure.
Please update now.
Let's go back in here. I don't need that. Let's switch to this so we just see what we've changed. Go in here and let me know if the zoom level is okay enough on your side.
For me, it's fine. I do have the whole screen on full screen.
Yeah. Okay. So if we just let me just remove the standard bit here and the text editor. Yeah, there we go. Now, so this changes this behavior quite a bit. So basically, we want to just run all the way up to the top, right? If we have a change, we want to run all the way to the top and say, you be dirty, right? You have changes you need to think about.
Yeah. But we only want to do this once. Or we don't
so in theory, we could have different root components. So no, well, yes, yeah, I guess that could be.
Don't we want to go completely up, like up?
Yeah. So we just want to say, well, that's the problem here. We disposed components IDs.
I mean, is that if you know that?
Can I get to the component state if it's been disposed? I guess maybe.
Probably you can. It's just very much undefined behavior in the worst case. I don't think that thing will change. Call dispose once more.
So.
Oh, here's the next one where we want to know if it's logical parent.
Yeah. So that's definitely we're not dealing with logical right now. Logical, not a Freudian slip. We're not dealing with logical components right now. But I guess there's a void, mark.
Root is dirty.
Okay, let me think for a second about this.
Because what you want, because it could in theory could change every position in the markup.
Yeah. So I guess here, whenever we're instantiating the component, we have a parent that we have a handle to the parent. So instead of dealing with dispose in here, we just say, well, you've been disposed. But I actually looked at the code and the dispose is getting called before update display async gets called. So what we can just do is, because,
you mark it in the dispose async.
Yeah, we can just walk up the tree here. Let me just see. Do we need to implement? Why do we need to implement there's no I. Why are we?
What you mean?
I'm just wondering what. Oh, we have I rendered component is I disposable.
Yes, I disposable.
Yeah.
Because of the events we have.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So here we want to say, well, let's start by storing our potential parent. in a field, and we know our potential parent is an I rendered
Rendered component.
component. Yeah. So it has to be an I rendered component. So we can actually just say I rendered component. Yeah. No, rather, because it might be null, so we say else. Yeah. So now we can just say, well, parent component state is not null.
Don't you want to put it before in a var current parent equals parent and then go up the tree until it's null? Because you want to
yeah.
mark the root.
Let me just say, yeah. So boom, 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 boom.
I'm not sure what you want to do.
Yeah. I want to go up to the root. Var root.
Yeah, var root
so-
equals parent, and as long as this
Yeah.
is not null, root equals root.parent component state.
No, I guess we do this, right?
No,
No.
root.parent.
No. Yeah.
No, that's also wrong. In your while, you want to have the root, and inside you want to have root.parent component state. There has to be root.
Yes. Well.
No.
Wait. No, I'm
it's-
confused. I'm confusing myself.
That field, that weird field you introduced.
Yes. But the thing is, doesn't. Oh, it's because we cast it to. So I want to just store it as a component state. Because components, rendered component.
Doesn't have
state-
the parent.
No, it doesn't have the parent.
Fair.
So
Then we can remove that cast again. Awesome.
yeah. Well, that doesn't work now. So we say root. If root is not null, we say parent component state. We don't even need to store it because it's just readily available. So go away assignment. It's
Wait, what? Why did
Parented.
you remove that?
because parent component state is
is a property
protected
you already have.
property. Yeah. So we say is candidate
You might wanna-
root. So we say
And you also want to do
if
this
candidate
only if candidate root is not null. Otherwise, you have a null reference exception right now.
Yeah. Oh, so no, yeah.
No, that was correct, but the whole thing is a if.
So-
if
So
yeah.
at this point,
And-
we have gone up the tree, and we can say candidate root. Well, that would then
If
be
candidate root is not null. Because if
Yes.
your parent component state was null from the beginning, then you
Yeah, if you were the root originally.
yes,
Right?
yes.
So if root is not null, do root dot and then actually
Mark
just do
dirty.
is I rendered
Oh.
component root component. Look at me. Mark dirty. I guess mark dirty. What does it mean to be dirty? Shit.
In this case, that you have to update the index again.
Yes, but what triggers the update?
The update display async afterwards. From a sequence diagram point of view, we are before update display async.
Yeah.
And what
I'm
we
just
wanna
thinking.
know-
So that
And by the
Yeah.
way, it's not. Yeah.
So let's generate that method. Where did you generate yourself?
On the I rendered
Oh,
component.
Yeah, fair enough. This needs to be non-public, by the way.
Ugh.
Mm-hmm. And back here, and now you're complaining that we're not implementing all the things we need to do.
Probably would be easier to have a property instead of a method. Is anyway, everything here is internal.
Yeah, well, yes and no.
No, not the
Private
index. The index is nice, but there's 2 lines of code. Yeah, it's fine. It's not like you do any validation logic. It's not like, any pre-processing is happening.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking we actually just need a reference anyway initially to let me just go back and undo this and instead do
Parent? You want to have the parent component here?
root get.
Parent. Not root, huh?
No, just root, because that's what we care about. We care about the root. We already have parent. We want root. So everybody should have a root unless you are the root. And in that case, so it might
It can be yourself. It could be yourself.
Yeah.
It makes it easier.
I'm not sure. Maybe.
Okay, let's see. Let's see.
Let's see. So what we want to do is we want to have I rendered component dot yes, and so I should be able to just do root. Nope. Let me not cast myself to something. Let me just do it explicitly. Implicitly rather. Internal.
It's an internal type. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, you are right. Root dot, because we need to get to that root anyway. Now when we want to get the the content right. So mark. Yeah. Okay. No, I think is dirty works. Is dirty works because that indicates to it that. So there's an order of things we wanna. So what I'm.
Wait. Can we step it back? Can we step it back? Can we
step it back? We can do that.
Jesus,
sorry.
Do we really need this? Because if as you say, if this post async is called anyway before, do we care about an update display async? Is there any reason we should care about that? The mark, like what influence would this have on the markers?
So if I have a component in some child component that gets disposed, that would, if that component actually produced markup, that would change the markup for the root component, right?
Yeah.
But if nobody else changed, then in the update display async method,
but
in
didn't
here,
we see that
we wouldn't get any other updated components as far as I can tell, but I might be wrong here. I might be wrong. So in either way, what I want to do is I want to set my root here during my constructor and say if parent.root parent component is
parent components is a component state. You have to either cast it or you have to do this while loop you removed nicely before. You have to introduce here again.
Yeah, so we just say as probably just let's actually just store this as
component state.
Component state, yeah. I don't know. Maybe. No, probably. I rendered component.
Probably we need both.
No, I don't think so. So let's see, because it itself is so we say as I rendered component if parent component.
So we have a short question here. Does the component only get disposed after its parent removes it from the render? So the parent should already know.
Well, it depends on so what. what I want is, so I think what you're also asking is, when we get called here,
Yeah, exactly.
does the render batch include anything that indicates that we
parent.
should tell the root? No, does yeah. So if we just have one component that's
Parents.
been disposed, no parents. So if one component has been disposed, a child component, but there's nothing else changed, does this render batch include anything? And the render batch has, see, render batch, it has reference frames, it has disposed event handlers, it has name changed, and it has updated components. If updated components doesn't include any indication that, you know, components have changed, then we don't know that we should tell the root component to go and, you know, regenerate its markup, because so that's my concern, is that we have so we need to know if we need to, when the component gets disposed, we need to tell the root, hey, you know, something underneath changed, you probably want to update yourself. Now, so now we just want to capture the root. So if we get a parent and its root component,
it's a component that doesn't have that here.
Yeah. So if it has a root component, right, then if it has, well, I can just start by saying root component state, just to get it to shut up. So we start by checking our parent component state. If it doesn't have a root, then we just want the parent component state. Or if the parent component is empty, well, then we just have null.
Then we are the root.
Oh yeah, so the thing is, component state doesn't include, so what we want to say is, this is actually this is parent component state we know is one of these guys, or rather parent rendered component. Parent component equals parent component state else I render component. So here we go. Now we can say, hey, do we have a root? Nope. Then it must be this guy. And if this is also null, then we don't have a root, right? Because
and
then
who sets that?
That is the renderer that gives us that. So
no, root is an introduction from our concept.
No. But this method gets called when the renderer wants to create a component state, right? And it calls it for the very first, for the root component.
Okay.
And when it does, no, actually, so what we do is we say this. Yeah, because we do want to always have a root, so that. No, I'm wrong. So this gets component 0, the first top component gets gets initialized by the renderer, and it calls the, you know, create component state, and that calls this method, and that passes in the renderer, it passes in the component ID instance and parent component. Now, the parent component in this case will be null, because we don't have any parent component state, because it's the root component. So in this particular case, we try to say, well, is parent component root, is that null? If that's the case, well, then we try with parent component, but that's also null, so we end up with the null component. Now, the next time, so that will be the root component. The next component, the first child component, gets called. It also calls in here, but then parent component state will be the one we just initialized. So it won't have a root, but it will have itself. So that means that we now have the right sort of logic going on. Now, we can then do, let's go in here and reintroduce void is dirty, I guess. and that would be this dirty. So, and didn't is dirty, and I'm not sure what to do about this just yet. But let's just see if we can get this working now. So that should create our component tree. So now, when we have updated components, we just loop through all the components and go like that. And then we can say var component, rendered component, and do get rendered component. And that would be, oh, hang on, I deleted too much. Come on. Undo. There we go. I was looking for that particular bit there. And let's just delete these guys here. So get component state, we want to get rendered component instead. And then we can do component state dot root dot is dirty. And now, because
nullable,
I believe we
nullable
store,
root might not be.
yes, that's true. That's true.
If you are the root, that's why it might be even easier to.
Yeah, but I do believe that we have our root components here. So yeah, that should work. So if we go back here, so we can just do, we either want the root or we, no. So let's do if component state dot root is dot yeah, this might be null. Oh no, so we do this. Yeah. So okay, no. So it's a one of these. If is null, then we do component state dot is dirty. Otherwise, we tell it to its root. Then we don't need this, right? Okay, so now we've done rendering. Then we can do a for each over root components. And what is item? Item is an bUnit root component, but sorry, I'm spinning up and down. bUnit root component. Do you have? You do not have a root ID, but I want to have you to have a. So let's go in and say, where are you instantiated? You instantiated here.
Oh, you have but you have this function you introduced, get rendered component, where you can give it an I component. That's literally what you would need now. No?
Yes, right. But I could also just give it, because we have the ID here, right? So we can also just assign it. So we can go in here and just have a private, internal, well, I guess
public.
prop int component ID. And that I can set root dot component ID equals root component ID. There we go. So going back to, oh no, it's, where is this here? I can just say, yeah, no, actually, you're right. This is nonsense, not needed. Come on, be gone. I can just do get rendered component dot item, and then you can say go update yourself. has render true, markup generation required, show. Oh, actually, what we do need to do here though is we need to do component state dot. We had some logic around that where we decided whether or not you've actually had changes to yourself. So that would be
That has changes.
yeah, this one. We still want to do this.
The diffs,
still want
if
to-
diffs dot edits.
Yeah, but we don't want to. So yeah, what's what I'm looking for here? We don't want to. Let me just add another void update. Well, actually, let's do this render count because we just need to. Okay, yeah, because we have on after render, we have on markup updated. So we need to also raise the markup updated when the markup is updated, but we don't want to raise that if we don't have any changes to our markup from previously. So this would I guess is30 actually does that for us in the sense that if I have a component that gets disposed, I can just walk up the tree and say is30 all the way up, which indicates that some markup might have changed, right? Because that's what we did before. If we go back here and, well, let me just zoom in. Control, here we go. So here, rendered component IDs, we probably actually still want to, this might not be needed anymore, but we might as well just keep that around for now. Just because this just removes it from the list of component IDs we've returned. I don't think we need that list going forward. Here we then say if there is any diffs, and this assumed, I guess, correctly that if we had a child component that got removed, there would be an edit count. I don't understand why there would be an edit count though. Maybe we just don't have a test covering that. Or do we go through disposed components?
I do think we have a test because I do think last week we had some red tests and then we added this and then more tests.
Yeah, so I think the change would be that do I mark, so basically what we have previously is that we indicate to ourselves, hey, do I have any changes? And this is markup generation required or has rendered true? That was what caused us, if we go into here, update state, is markup generation required? We would update the markup and invoke this, and then has rendered on after render. Then so these are the two booleans that indicated whether or not we would signal to anybody who was doing a wait for. But I don't think we probably don't have a wait for that tests that waiting for some change in a parent component that is caused by a child component getting disposed. So that might not be a test we have.
Not.
No, it seems so. Or it might be so. Either
Why
way.
should we also, like, from a user's point of view, does that matter? Your child component is disposed.
Well, so if you're trying to, if you say, I don't know, if you're looking at a table and you do a wait for, if you have a component like a table component, and you basically have a wait for some state, and that state might be that a row has disappeared, and you go and each row is a component, and you go and delete one component, but that doesn't trigger an update. It doesn't trigger and markup has changed. So
Why shouldn't it change if you delete a row?
because like here in V1 it will, but here in V2 we're just looking at, hey, that's the reason for us to indicate that you need to highlight, need to trigger that.
But
So
isn't that why we went basically up the component tree inside literally that code?
well, so we don't actually do that. That is where we just have the root. We just mark as dirty, but we could also
No,
just
I mean
walk
before,
up.
like on V2
Yeah,
branch origin.
yeah. No. So we don't go up the. Yeah, we do go up the component tree, and
Yes, I thought
wait,
so.
hang on. Let's see. So we have the
Update parents.
update parents, but that is only called inside here, updated parents. It's not called in the disposed section. So we didn't do anything in the disposed section before.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
So, but what we can do is we can say root is dirty, but we can also do
Well,
while
maybe our assumption was not that bad. We should maybe, check if it's true that when you dispose a child, that the parent has
Yeah.
to re-render itself.
well,
Which
it will have that the child had content like in. So the question is whether or not the diff list for a parent, if I dispose a child content, will the parent component be in the updated components collection here? I don't think so.
exactly.
Yeah. So that's where we need to say, well, you've been updated, and so we need to know after components have done rendering. We need to know if we should trigger update component updated or component rendered, or if we should just trigger a new markup event, right?
Yep.
So we have these two events, but for each rendered component we might want to change invoke depending on the state. So I guess that's why I want to use the is dirty flag to say, hey, private bool dirty. If I am dirty, then that means that my markup has changed. So that would be true. We set that to is dirty. And in here we say update state, which would do something.
Can you go back again to the for loop?
I was about to say render count. So we always update render count independent of whether or not if it's just been somehow has changed somewhere. So let's go in here and say I want to move this up here and give it a set method as well, and probably an internal set. No,
That's an internal interface.
That should be. Yeah, probably should work. And here we can do, where is render count? Where are you, my friend? Here, it's internal. Might need to. Here we go. It added it there. So this would be okay. No, it can't. It
has to be just public. I mean, it's an interface.
Yeah, it would be something like this. We can just change this to use full property. So this just return render count, whereas our friend down here will return render count, and it will also
do nothing on set. But why do we do this? Why not just exposing render count? What's not the benefit of having this overcomplicated packing field?
Because I don't want users to change it.
It's an internal class. It doesn't matter.
No, yeah, but I can't have like one interface implements it as just a getter. Here, this one implements it as a getter, and this one has a get and a set. So that's why
Isn't
there's sort
that
of
structurally the same?
no,
Like,
it didn't behave that way. Let's see. Oh, well, at least I tried.
because you only had an internal set. If you would, my question was like, if you do a public set, if you render count property, if this works or not. But
Yeah, I think. Well, let's go with this for now. That's this is very much just hacking things together, making it work.
so, but exactly
So
here, before you continue, my question was here that now you always set the root as dirty, always, under any circumstance. Why?
No, I don't set the root as dirty. Yes, because we want to signal to the root that it's dirty. We also want to signal to.
Oh, yeah.
So actually, root is null. So we always want to say, just go to common state. You're dirty now because you've changed. so that means so is dirty means that we should is not null.
But why should we only tell the root? Every parent has to be dirty, because yes, your start index might be the same, but your end index is probably everywhere different than before the render.
Yeah, good point. So yeah, well, so I was using is dirty to indicate that the markup
If you need to update
changed.
the markup, okay.
Yeah, no, not need to update the markup. The markup would need to be updated when the root renderer changes again, because then all the new all the child components will get new indices. If they might get new indices, but if for example, if I have, let's see, two components stacked on top of each other, and I delete the first one, like two child components, and I delete the first one disposed, then but the second one just keeps its markup. Then if the markup didn't change, it just moved, the content up, the indices just moved, but the markup didn't change. So in that case, we don't want to raise the, hey, markup updated. We just want to say, yeah, I rendered. I had a render cycle happen to me.
Yeah.
Or maybe even that, maybe even not that, because it might not have rendered, right? So
yeah.
Did it do we always increment? No, probably not. So if it didn't explicitly have any changes itself, then it didn't, it wasn't part of the render cycle, then we don't increment it. So this works in that we increment render count when it's part of the updated component. This one we don't need to do anymore, but we need to say if this, then you are dirty, because it means that you changed, which means we want to raise the thing, and we always want to tell the root that it's dirty, I guess. Maybe we also want to just do this, so we'd only tell root if it's, but I don't know if we would ever have a case where we get in here where edit count
and the count is,
yeah, so that is sort of
it wouldn't make sense. Why would you be updated if the edit is 0?
Yeah. Can this ever happen? Let's have an assertion here saying that is not the case, and then if it turns out that this assertion gets
true all
thrown
the
up,
time.
Yeah, then or if this is not true all the time, if this turns
well,
out
then
to
we have
0.
to put it back. That's fair.
Yeah, and here we just say updates. Here we would say get render component, and we would just say var root, and if root is dirty, we would say now it's the time for you to go in a root update markup probably something like that.
Have a nice
Instead.
weekend as well.
Yeah, have a great weekend, Leith. Is I
Just as
see your. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I also have to drop off soon. Just that you know.
Yeah. Me free actually. Me too, or whatever you say. So
Because we're 3 people now. Okay, makes sense. But
update markup. So we have set markup indices. We have update markup. Okay. Update markup doesn't make a lot of. So we might need to have sort of a root rendered component, which is very specific one we use just for the case where we don't have.
you are root component.
When you are root component. For now, this should only be called by on the root component. So we call. So if you are dirty, so we say is dirty equals true. And is dirty equals true on the component itself, saying, hey, you have changed, man, you've changed. And I think dispose, so this one goes away, I guess.
And in dispose, you just say, hey, root dirty.
A root is true.
Yeah, it doesn't work, unfortunately. I'm sorry, you have to do the if.
If root is root is not null. There we go. And actually that's not a coding style we follow here. So root is not null. Yes, dispose. Let's build. I think like I have some. Does not contain a root component ID. Oh yeah, that's right. We didn't do that. And 6 errors, does not implement is dirty. It does not. So let's upgrade this to be a public bool get set. Or maybe rather dirty is even. There we go. And yeah, very much just experimenting here. Public is dirty root. All right. What else seemed to be wrong? I have does not have an interface update markup. Fair enough. So here we do. Now we do. If we dispose, we do a thing. If we say update markup, update markup
Calls himself.
it calls itself. So let's just do this then. Now,
If it's fine for you, I would call it a stream.
Yeah,
I have to really drop off.
Because
okay.
We need to continue. I think we are in the right direction here, but let's park this for now. Let's call that a stream.
Awesome. 4 times in a row.
4 times in a row. I think actually there might be a chance for a 5th time in a row. I haven't looked at my calendar, but let's count on it.
I do think for me it should fit. But I can I can promise that will be the end of the streak, because the week after I'm definitely not in, unfortunately, and the week after that also not. I'm very sorry. Again, I'm away.
You just holidays all the time, Stephen.
There is a certain, what do you call that? Damn it, I'm not good with words. Okay, let's be a curse and a blessing. Jesus Christ, that took me ages. It's a curse and a blessing to be independent contractor. You can do a lot of vacations.
Yeah, true that. That's fair. And that's fine. You have 2 weeks off. I there's a good chance I'll be maybe just booting up the stream and be talking to myself in that case. Might as
also
well.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. it's 10 minutes past 4 here in Iceland right now. So family's about to come home and start knocking on my door. So I might as well, say,
That's perfect.
have a very nice weekend, Stephen.
Okay. Thanks you too. And whoever joined in, also have a very beautiful weekend. Start of the day, end of the day. It depends, when are you watching the stream. Thank you for joining in.
Thanks for coding with us,
Bye-bye.
everybody. See you next time.
Bye-bye.